Welcome to A Matter of Perspective with Judge Derwin Webb. I am the host, Judge Derwin Webb, coming to you from the Farrier History Museum. We are pleased and honored to have on the show today my friend, Dr. Jasmine Farrier. Dr. Farrier, how are you today?
I am honored, Your Honor.
It's a great opportunity to have you on here because I'm a graduate of the University of Louisville, and you are someone that I've known about for a long time because your name came up in a lot in conversations before we actually met. But before I get started, I want to read something to you. It was a press release that was sent out. It says that we are so excited that Dr. Farrier has taken on this critical role for the university. In filling this position, I sought someone who would be authentic in telling the U of L story, who would build important relationships with all members of the Cardinal family, and who had established a proven record of delivering positive results. Dr. Farrier meets and surpasses all these criteria. That was from U of L President Dr. Neely Bendapudi. You came on board in this position, and I know that there's been a transition, but before we get to that transition, let's talk about how you actually got to Louisville. What brought you to the University of Louisville?
The University of Louisville took a chance on me when I was a newly minted PhD. I started off in Brooklyn, where I grew up. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison for college, and then I went to the University of Texas at Austin for graduate school. When I was getting my PhD, I had no idea where I would land. Newly minted PhDs do not get to direct their first job. The universe gets to direct that. Mm-hmm. I got 2 offers. I made the right choice to come to U of L, but to be honest, U of L didn't necessarily think I was the top choice. Have you ever had a colleague tell you later after you were hired for something that maybe you weren't the first choice?
I get that a lot in my job right now. I'm just joking.
It's a very interesting insight to have, and the truth is I didn't have any publications to my name. I really didn't have anything in the pipeline, and a research university requires research professors. I was a bundle of promises to U of L, and when I came in January of 2002, I was filled with gratitude. I was scared, but I was appreciative, and I decided I would never let anyone regret hiring me, and I would pay it back every day. So I became the teacher I wanted to be, the researcher I wanted to be, and then the university citizen that I didn't know I wanted to be, and that's the interesting part. Professors have 3 lives. So we teach in the classroom, we do original research to contribute to the body of knowledge. So when you go to a research university, those teachers, whether or not they're using their own stuff, they're not pulling it off of the shelf. That's the difference between a research university and a regular college. These are people who are in the field trying to create new bodies of knowledge through new analytical tools. And whether the student knows it or not, they're benefiting from the journey of how to get new information out there. So I did those 2 things. Again, being a teacher was what I wanted to be all along. I fell in love with the research, and then I fell in love with U of L. The more I got to know our students, our faculty, our extraordinarily committed staff, and our committed alumni base, our success stories, I just knew I needed to do more, do better, and say yes to every opportunity that came my way to help U of L. So along the way, I got a few more opportunities, and that landed me this new position this summer as Vice President for University Advancement, which means I'm in charge of the fundraising operation for everything except for athletics. Athletics does their own fundraising, and our alumni relations office.
Okay. So if I am a budding high school senior and I'm thinking about universities to attend, or if I'm a parent wanting my child to go to a university across the country, why would I pick the University of Louisville?
For 3 reasons. And I would say this to any student who came to my office when I was chair of political science. I'm always looking at the student, but I'm actually talking to the parents. So imagine that you're the student, and I'm really talking to the parents. I'd say wherever you go, every visit, I want you to ask the university 3 things. 1, do the real researchers teach in the classrooms every semester? The superstar researchers should be superstar teachers. 2, do they have resume building experiences that you will be able to be qualified for in your first semester? Does that university want you to build your resume as you earn your degree? You need to leave the university not just with a piece of paper, with a degree and the knowledge in your head, but with the connections and the network to get your foot in the door. 3, what is that university's alumni base? And how do they reach back to help the next generation? Why do I ask those 3 questions? Because U of L slams it out of the park on every one. That's why you attend U of L. U of L is a real research institution with the heart and soul of a smaller college because the classes are small, the professors get to know their students personally, and again, it's a diverse research experience. 2, experiential learning. So there are some parts of U of L, like the Speed School, which gives every engineering student 3 co-op experiences that lead to a job offer. The other parts of U of L have similar opportunities. They're structured differently. For example, in political science, there's the Frankfurt internship. U of L sends more students to Frankfurt every legislative session than all the other Kentucky universities combined. That's how you build your resume as you earn your degree and create that job network for when you graduate. But the last part is the business that I'm in now, and that's our alumni. We have extraordinary success stories. You are one of them. That's why Political Science chose you as the Alum of the Year to celebrate in 2018, the first year I was chair of Political Science. Now, we hadn't met before, but your star power had been a legacy that, of course, I knew about. And you're not the only student athlete who became a major force in the world after graduation. But you're my favorite.
Well, I appreciate that. Let me ask you this, and those are great, and I echoed some of the things you're talking about as far as the story of U of L. I have a son that graduated from the University of Louisville, and I know that he appreciates his experience at the university as well. But his experience is different from the experiences that kids will have today because of COVID. How is COVID-19 affecting the university going forward? Not only the current students there, but prospective students coming to the university.
It is such a challenge. I feel terrible for students who are graduating from high school, missing their milestone events, and then not getting that first semester in college that really seals their connection to the university. I'm teaching this semester, so I can only tell you my own personal experience, and I taught in the spring semester when we transitioned to online. My observations are that it's hard to form a community feeling online. It's not impossible. So I'll give you the example. For my spring semester, I got to know my students. I was teaching 2 classes. When we went online in March, I already knew them. And when I saw their beautiful faces online, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I knew who they were. This semester, we started online. It's a little bit harder to get to know my students, but I do Tuesdays online and Thursdays in person.
Okay.
But I don't require anybody to go to the classroom. And today, for the first time, it is Thursday. There was no one there, and that's okay. And the reason is I do it 3 ways on Thursday and 2 ways on Tuesday. We live stream and we record. That's very important because I didn't tell you the best part. My class is at 8 a.m. Did you ever take a lot of 8 a.m. classes?
As few as I possibly could.
So I never took one, and I never taught one before. So the good news is you can't form a community if you try. So it's hard for me. I'm not at my best, I'll be honest with you. I'm not the most tech-savvy person, so I don't use all the bells and whistles. I love to get to know my students one-on-one in my office. And I always ask them, what do you do outside? You know, U of L students work. Very interesting lives outside. When I get a chance, a glimpse of somebody, I get to ask some questions. And I'll give you a quick example that'll make you feel very proud of how U of L students get through these tough times. I have a student in my class this semester who was coming to my Thursday classes. The first time she arrived, she was a little late. Keep in mind, again, it's 8 o'clock. I'm okay with that. And then she hung around after class, and I asked her, if everything's okay, what's the semester like for you? I'd never had her before. She said, well, I'm overwhelmed. I said, well, what's going on? She said she works 3rd shift at UPS. You know that a lot of students do. And then she said, and I'm also in ROTC. And I just came from ROTC, so I said, wait a minute. Are you telling me it's 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm the third thing you did today? That's a U of L student. So U of L students meet their challenges head on every day, COVID or not. What the university has to do is be extra loving, extra supportive, extra flexible. I am kind of known as a strict professor, I'll be honest with you. I think I'm lovable, but I think I'm strict. I'm not as strict anymore. Mm-hmm. I tell a student, don't tell me why you're going to be late with an assignment. Just hand it in when you can. Mm-hmm. That's not normally me, but I have to be gracious. I have to be honest and gentle, and that's what they need. That's why it's hard right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to drill back for a second, because I was told when I was growing up that a major, you don't really choose a major kind of chooses you. And political science chose you. So what was it about political science that made you want to be so involved where you started teaching?
Thank you for asking that question, because I love to tell this story. It's simple, but it's true. Mm-hmm. I went to a giant university. The University of Wisconsin is much bigger than U of L. Mm-hmm. And I went to a big public high school in Brooklyn. My high school had 6,000 people in it, and it took up a full city block.
Wow.
So my mother said, you're good being a number. It's okay to be a number. You'll figure out a way to stand out. When I went to college, I was shocked at how many people were smart around me, really smart. So I had to learn to listen to my fellow students and listen to the professors. I had this one professor. His name is Booth Fowler. He's still alive, thank God. He's retired now from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And he teaches political theory. I had never studied philosophy or political theory, but it's the theory of everything. And what everything means is about the human being, the human spirit. Can we form communities where we trust each other enough to turn our backs on each other? You want to gather apples, let's say. Let's say you find a dry cave. Mm-hmm. Without government and laws, what happens the next day when you leave that cave and you leave your apples behind? You come home, somebody's in your cave with your apples. Mm-hmm. This sounds really bizarre, but this is what we call social contract theory, which is not a historic theory. It's a theory of why communities form. And you can't have a successful community unless you understand what human beings are made of. And these are all the building blocks for politics. So I'm in a class learning about Plato and Aristotle and Rousseau and Hobbes. And I'm watching this guy work the room. He's asking, where are you from? What else do you do outside of class? And there are 100 people easily in the room. Mm-hmm. And he asks everybody how they're doing before class. I go to his office hours. The line is down the hall. The line is so long, and he sees everybody. And he wants to know about everybody as a human being. I am beside myself. And I say to him, after I took 18 hours with him, I took every class I could take with him, and I did a thesis too, which was terrible and unreadable, but he was kind about it. I even once spilled a giant coffee. This is in the 80s when you started to have coffee shops where you would take these giant to-go coffees. Mm-hmm. They were really expensive. And I splurged on this giant cappuccino. I spilled it all over his office carpet. And he remembers this to this day. But my point is, I said, I want to be you. I really want to be you. It's not just teaching political theory, which is what I thought I wanted to teach. I wanted to be the lightning bolt in every classroom. Mm-hmm. Because it hit me in my head. This was the most important stuff I could learn. It hit me in my heart. And you know what he said? If somebody told you that they wanted to be a family court judge, what would you say?
Think again.
If you ask a doctor, I want to be a doctor, what would they say? Oh, you have no idea. Mm-hmm. You have no idea what this is really like. You want to be a public school teacher. The people who do those things know that the next generation doesn't know what you know. And he said, it's a terrible idea, don't do it. Mm-hmm. And then he said, I don't even know if you're cut out for this, which hurt, it hurt a little bit, because maybe I wasn't the smartest person in the room. But I was pretty tenacious. And then he told me, when he finally got on board, that he had a friend who was a law professor and a political science professor at the University of Texas at Austin. And he said, maybe political theory is not your thing. You might have a talent for law and American politics. And that's what I did. So I ended up going to law and American politics. But having that theory background is really important, especially in a time of crisis. It's the human connectedness. When you see a play, when you go to a museum, when you see a dance piece, you feel connected to all human beings. There's something about it that is connecting with you. That's what political theory is. It's saying that the ancient Greeks had the same questions that we have about ourselves, the same temptations, the same struggle within our minds. Plato would say you have chariots, you have parts of you that are pulling you in different directions. You know that every day when the alarm goes off. Appetite, reason, and then spirit. Spirit is pride, which is a uniquely human trait. We want to know how others perceive us. But all animals have their appetites. We have them too. We're animals. Mm-hmm. It's okay to talk about that. Then we have our reasonable part. And our minds are storms about all of these things. And then our societies are complex because, of course, they're made up of other human beings.
That's profound, very profound. I will tell you this. Okay, you went to University of Texas.
For graduate school.
For graduate school, and then that's when you came to University of Louisville after that.
Yes. Well, I did a short year as a research fellow at the University of Virginia at the Miller Center, which is a terrific place for presidential history. We'll get to that, I'm sure, soon.
We're about to get to it, yes.
Yeah, so the Miller Center is a research center that specializes in presidential history. Mm-hmm. And I did a research fellowship there after I graduated. And then I went on the job market, and this job came open. Mm-hmm. And I applied. I think I was the most enthusiastic person they probably interviewed, if not the best person they interviewed, because my husband is from Louisville, and we were not living here at the time, and I took him home. But I said to them, I've actually been to U of L games. Mm-hmm. You don't have to sell this place on me. This is a magical city, and I would be honored to live here. And if you give me tenure, I'm yours forever. And I've never looked at a job ad.
Well, being a parent of a student that just graduated and just finished, and seeing how the university has changed from the time I went there in the 90s to how things are today, I will say this. I know the university is doing well and has done well, mm-hmm. and that's largely because of the people that came before you, but it's going to do well because of people like you. I know that I chose the University of Louisville not because of basketball. I chose the University of Louisville because of political science. I chose it because of Dr. Paul Webber, Dr. Phil Lemley, and as I'm talking to students now, the Courtney Kellners that's at the courthouse with us now, or Brandon McClain, yes. who's a student now, the way I talk about Dr. Webber and Dr. Lemley is how they talk about you. So you are not only a person that's going to take the university forward, but you are building legacies with the people that you have taught, and you are that person for the university. You're the face of the university, along with Dr. Bendapudi, of course. But when I hear people talk about the University of Louisville now, I hear them talk about athletics, I hear them talk about Dr. Bendapudi, and I hear them talk about you. So I just want to say thank you for all that you're doing, and it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. Can I return the compliment?
Absolutely.
I was lucky to have been hired when Dr. Webber and Dr. Lemley were still at the department. They reminded me of Booth Fowler, my inspiration, because they cared about the whole person. Mm-hmm. But that did come to your burden when you gave your speech in April of 2018, when you were explaining your journey. And it was a very honest journey, and I remember this vividly. After you were done, students swarmed up to you. And they said, can we intern for you? You were up for re-election that year. Can we work in your chambers? And you looked at me with a help. And I said, I will do it. And you remember everything that happened next. Yeah. We had a group of students who wanted to do something for you, to learn from you. And you wanted to pay it back by giving them an experiential education opportunity, a resume building experience, and a connection. We had an event at your home where we talked about what it means to be a judicial campaign volunteer. The rules are different. Can't throw mud on your opponent. can't make promises, can't even wear your t-shirt or your button in certain circumstances. Are the students prepared to learn that? You said if you're going to work in my chambers, you have to have a background. Well, that group turned out to be 3 extraordinary students, and you accepted them all as interns.
Yes.
And they loved it. They loved every minute of it. I know because I was their supervisor for the academic credit side. You paid it back. That's what I call the ecosystem of success. We recruit, retain, persist, and finish the best students. They flourish. They help us recruit, retain, persist, and finish the next generation. You're the success story that I am just honored to know.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'm also smart enough to know that those 3 students will be people that I could possibly be working for someday. So it's almost like I'm investing in them
We are going to
because
live in their world.
I'll be living in their world at some point.
Yes.
Dr. Farrier, once again, thank you for being on the show, A Matter of Perspective. And I want to remind the audience that it doesn't matter what I think, it may not even matter what Dr. Farrier says, because at the end, it's all a matter of perspective. Thank you.